The Toronto International Film Festival is currently running its 49th edition, and I've seen a few of the movies that play there, including one about an election in the Vatican, an Iranian production from a filmmaker who likely never returned to that country again, and the newest movies directed by Steven Soderbergh and Sean Baker. I'm going to provide my thoughts on each of these, starting with Baker's film Anora. He has made a career out of directing films about the people on the outskirts of society and often finding empathy with them. Anora continues that, and it ends up being a much funnier film than expected. Mikey Madsen gives an excellent performance as the erotic dancer who falls in love with a Russian oligarch's son, and they quickly get married. From there, the movie becomes a hilarious screwball comedy, not unlike something Howard Hawks might have directed. Baker does such a good job of building those comedic scenes and taking them to humorous places, while also developing the characters like Anora and the Armenian bodyguards trying to dissolve this marriage. The film has a genuine sympathy and understanding for Anora and those in her profession, making sure not to demean them, but instead getting why someone would enter this line of work. The almost 2 hours and 20 minutes fly by, and Anora becomes one of the funniest movies I've seen this year, although also with an element of sadness. Next we have Presence, a horror film directed by Steven Soderbergh, about a family that moves into a haunted house. It's a familiar scenario that Soderbergh does try to spruce up with his use of the camera, as it's seen entirely through the point of view of the ghost. This film is primarily a slow-burning character study of this family, including a daughter dealing with the loss of a friend. While a few intriguing and shocking moments come up, very little exciting happens over the course of the film. There's a room shaking here or an object levitating there, but Soderbergh is primarily interested in the tensions between the family members. An aspect that harms the film is how thoroughly unlikable the son is. While he's obviously meant to be flawed, the character is just insufferable to watch. Presence initially seems like it'll be about the effect that drug addiction might have on a person's loved ones, but that ends up being put aside, and the feeling at the end is, that's it? It's a noble effort from Soderbergh, but the horror depicted just does not stick. With The Seed of the Sacred Fig, director Mohammad Russolov explores the political situation in Iran, especially its treatment of women. Unsurprisingly, the government of Iran has not been pleased with the political messaging in his films, which is why he now lives in Germany. However, it's great there still exist filmmakers like him who are willing to stand up to their governments when disagreeing with their policies. The film is primarily about this family and the young women dealing with the political turmoil in their country. It's a character-driven film, and Russolov succeeds in making one invested in this family and the troubles that arise. There's a solid dynamic between two sisters, and with them standing up to their judicial father, the film draws a parallel between their situation and the protests happening outside. The Seed of the Sacred Fig is a comment on extremist tyrannical regimes and the way their citizens are treated, especially women. However, even when the characters are not having political discussions, what they're saying is still compelling. The plot takes some intriguing turns, including a storyline involving a missing gun, and even though it runs almost 3 hours, the interest is kept throughout. Finally, there's Conclave, which focuses on the election of a new pope and the discussions between the cardinals doing the voting. This is a film very reliant on acting and dialogue, with Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, and John Lithgow taking the opportunity to really go all in on these characters and their differing feelings on how to proceed with this important selection. Edward Berger's direction is fairly standard, mostly letting the actors do their job, and the story plays out in a traditional fashion. This is the kind of film where people will interpret the stances of the cardinals and the subtext in their own ways. From my perspective, Conclave struck me as a comment on the political climate in Europe, as we see the differing views of a far-right cardinal, a more left-wing one, and then the chief one attempting to be more moderate and balanced, and how he addresses these disagreements. There's intrigue in which pope will be selected, with Berger even making scenes of the cardinals casting ballots into something entertaining. Conclave ultimately feels like a theater piece, but a well-acted and solid one. All these films will be opening in general release in the coming months, so keep a lookout for them if they strike your fancy.